All right. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I'm your host, Will Christensen. As you can see, I have a chief child officer here in the background, Julia, who's decided to appear and disappear. I also have Kamal here. And Kamal, how do I say your last name? Kamal Singh?
It's
I said your last name right. I have Kamal Singh here. And Kamal, I like to open this up without actually any introduction from you, because I like to ask you a question that actually you end up introducing yourself right off the bat anyway. The question I want to ask is, if I'm an e-commerce seller, what have you done before? Who are you? And why would I care to listen to you around the idea of monetizing capital?
okay. Sounds good. So, I've been helping Amazon sellers, create and optimize their Amazon listings. So, a little bit about my background. Come from India as an international student. Moved to Canada in 2010. I have always believed in the concept of being around the best people. Being around the top performers. So that kind of led me even back home. I was going to the elementary school, and then slowly my parents sending me to a better school, competing with those guys, and then going to the college, competing to a better college, and then competing with the top guys, coming to Canada, being around with different culture, different language and everything, and competing with them, and then getting a job, and starting my own business. So that kind of tells a little bit about my background. So we'll be very happy to share anything that comes around into this session.
Cool. And what have you done in your life that proves you know how to monetize mental capital?
Okay, so a lot of the things, for example, starting Amazon agency mastermind, starting a business, learning a lot about how to run run ads, get more leads, how to run sales operations, the overall business operations and everything, learning on your own, and then helping other people in a mastermind, that kind of helped me a lot. And the other thing, that doing masterminds and community events, different cities of Canada, meeting other Amazon sellers, taking their questions, helping them out, and learning from them as well. And then all those small ideas and all those small tips and tricks that kind of led from small events to a conference. It was all about mental. There was nothing nothing physical. It's the knowledge that you learn from your own business, that you learn from small events, learn from the best people around you, and then you make something good out of it. So we have a conference which is doing really well.
Beautiful. Okay, so not only have you founded a conference, you have also, which, by the way, fantastic conference, good stuff. So tell us a little bit about that. When is the conference? Is it already happened this year? What's coming up with that?
That normally happens at the end of the year. So last year, we got Bradley Sutton. We got Norm Farrar in Edmonton, in Canada. So we got like bunch top speakers last year. So this year date is still yet to be decided, but it will happen in December 2024, and it's mainly designed for sellers who are doing about $500,000 to like multiple 7-figure or 8-figure a year. So we kind of gathered them around and get the feedback, what they want to hear, and then we get speakers which will provide them the best value. So plus obviously
Beautiful.
the game. So that's kind of the concept.
I love it. So you organized the conference, you've organized a mastermind. Sounds like you own an Amazon agency. Is that right? And you were an FBA seller as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, you've really gone that journey of like having an idea and turning it into real money, right? Into monetizing. I love that. When's the first time, Kamal, you can remember monetizing mental capital?
I think the first time was, okay, so I was trying to find different ways to make money on Amazon, different ways to make money online. So once I found Amazon seller, Amazon FBA, I kind of sold for about 1 year. And I always had an idea, someone else, one of my friends, he was, doing the Forex, trading and, teaching people how to make money by doing day trading. I always kind of had that in my mind that, if he is doing it and also teaching it to the other people, I'm going to do the exact same thing with Amazon FBA. So I started my own product, learned a lot of things, like, watched thousands of videos. And then I had the same idea that I'm not just going to stop there. I'm going to build something off of, the knowledge that I'm gaining, by selling on Amazon, by watching those videos. And that kind of led me to, that was the moment when I was like, okay, I think I have enough knowledge about, Amazon FBA. So I think I can start helping, people out. So then I started my Amazon FBA agency. But in the middle, as I mentioned, I was also doing small events like in Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto. So, that kind of helped me build a foundation for the agency. So it was all, that was the moment. It's not like it was pre-decided before I wanted to sell on Amazon that once I gather all this knowledge, I'm going to do something, on top of that knowledge, like not.
Interesting. So go back to when you made that decision. But so sometimes I've heard of people like, oh, in elementary school, I sold candy bars or, all sorts of different things very early. Anything very early that you can remember when you were out monetizing mental capital?
Okay, so I was doing a day job. I was working at a corporation. I worked for TELUS for 6 years, a corporation in Canada. You know, every day I would go to the job and come back home, have a coffee and sit on a couch and watch TV like for like a couple of hours. And then, and I was wasting a lot of time. And I saw my friends getting successful on like different things, right? The crypto was coming up, I think it was booming back in the days. My friends were making money off of it in 2015. Like some people were doing Forex, some people were buying businesses. And then I end up had that moment, like, what I'm doing with my life, just going to work and wasting my, time in the evening. I can do something bigger. I could do something better. So that was the moment that kind of led me that, okay, I need a side hustle. I can't just do this job forever, just want to do it on my own. So that was the moment when I decided that, okay, you know what, now it's time to get serious about life. I'm already, 24 years old, so when I hit my 30, I don't want to be at the same spot where I'm right now. So that kind of, helped me get started on things.
Interesting. And so it sounds like you tried the day trading thing a little bit. How did that go?
That did not work out really well. So, my friend, as I mentioned, he was posting stories on on Snapchat, like, hey, I made $100, $200 today. Here's like $500 trade I did. I went to him. I'm like, hey, he used to be my roommate. I was like, okay, brother, can you teach me? Like, I want to do the exact same thing. And he was like, absolutely, just let's meet at Tim Hortons, and I'm going to walk you through like how exactly to do this. And, I'll share, a program that I have. So he did tell me, everything. I was super excited. But in the end, he's like, hey, if you want to join my program, it's $2,500. I'm like, brother, you're my roommate. There's like, it's like, it's a lot of money for me. And he's like, hey, brother, if you don't have enough money, maybe save up some money and then come back after like few months. That was the moment, I could not sleep at that night. I was like, how is that possible that my roommate got to that position? Like he learned so much and, I am willing to pay him, but I just don't have the money. That was the moment, like I knew that I have been
He
left
had
behind.
mental capital you wanted. He was like, he knows so much more about this than me. It's worth $2,500. I know if I invest 2,500, I'm going to walk away with more, or at least that was the belief, right? He created enough desire in you that you were like, I want that knowledge.
Exactly.
What a fantastic, so he's your roommate in college. And what a fantastic example of monetizing mental capital. He figured out, look, I know how to do this day trading thing, but the way I'm going to make money is by teaching other people how to do it. And I'm going to create a program that monetizes my mental capital. And you were like, I'm in, I want that.
Yes, exactly. I was like super excited. Even I did not have money. I went to my couple of other friends. I'm like, hey, look at his Snapchat stories. He's making really good amount of money. And, look at, and we're not. How about we split this money in three, like $2,500, and, in Canadian dollars, it was coming out to be like, 3,000 something. So we split, three people split, split that money, and only one person was taking the program and the other two were just learning from the stuff he was giving to us. And I was not the front person. Like there was somebody else who was like learning from his like coaching calls, or from the PDFs that he was giving us.
Were you the one who organized the little like three of us are going to do it? So you're the leader in that sense, and you're like, and you go do it and just come back and tell us everything that he told you how to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, we were like group of friends, like those three people. So the other guy had a really good relationship with him. I'm like, okay, you become the front end guy, but I will learn everything from the back, from the back end. But, when I was learning it, so two things happened. Okay. The Forex trading did not get into my head. I could not understand, those candlesticks and everything. I was like, this is not for me. And the second part was that I was so mentally thrashed, by being left behind in my life, I was feeling guilty and, embarrassed that not having enough money, like what exactly is going on. So I really wanted to do something. So what I did after 2 weeks, I was like, hey guys, you two, both of you go ahead and learn this thing. I'm going to find a different opportunity, to start and make money. Right. So that's when I started doing some research on YouTube, like how to make money online. And
So
that's
hold on, real quick. So I love this. How many hours did you spend trying to figure out candlesticks?
not more than 5 hours.
Okay. So you spent 5 hours in 2 weeks thinking about it, right? Like how often was he meeting classes wise?
Like once a week.
Once a week. Okay. So once a week he's doing his classes. So he'd had 2 classes at this point. And how long were his classes? Like an hour?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just like running the mental math here, right? So he goes to the class for an hour, your buddy gets on the phone with you for an hour, and then you try to figure it out for an hour, and you're like, I don't know about this. And then it happens again. Hour goes on, he comes and tries to teach you for an hour, you spend 2 or 3 hours looking at it, and you're like, this is not working for me. So much so that you were like, I'm just gonna call, like you put $1,100 Canadian into this thing at that point, something like that. And you're just like, you know what? I'm kissing that $1,100 goodbye. I'm going to go figure something else out. Is that essentially what you did?
Exactly.
So, okay. And this, like I told you, like I kind of pick something and pivot in on it. And a lot of times it's something I'm trying to work on right now. I'm curious, how did you cut the ties with that $1,100? Like for me, I think I would have been like, oh no, I got to stick it through. Like how long was the course? Was it like 6 weeks, 7 weeks,
I think it was like a 3 months program.
3 month program? So if it's a 3 months program, that's 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And you took 2 of those 12 weeks and said, I'm out. So that's like 2 of 12. That's like less than 10%. Well, it's like 15%, something like that. Oh no, 2 out of 12. Okay, for those of you who are doubting Will's mental capacity here, I do understand fractions, and that is 1/6 of what was there. So Kamal, you literally had only consumed 1/6, less than 20% of his knowledge that he was willing to transfer.
Mhm.
And now you're getting it secondhand, which whatever. By the way, I freaking love the creativity around like, well, I don't have $2,500, but I got 2 friends and I got $1,100. If we all put it together, like we got this. Like I love the creativity there. I think like if more people thought that way, we would have less problems in the world. When you leaned into that, how were you able to just be like, because what could you have bought with $1,100 at this point? You're like 24, you said?
That was back in 2014 or 15. Yeah.
Okay, so 2014. And how old were you at the time?
I was, 22, 23.
22, 23. Okay. So I'm going back to myself at 22 or 23. And back in 2014, I mean, we're now 10 years in the future and we've had like hyperinflation. And so it's actually kind of funny to think like 10 years ago, that was actually more money than it is now. So not only like $1,100 to me, and we'll just adjust here because for me, it was like, yeah, okay. So like $800 or $900 to me because I was, US based. So $800 or $900 to me when I was in college, 22, dude, that's like an entire summer's rent. Like an entire summer's rent, like 3 months of my rent or 4 months of my rent is what we're talking about in $800 US. Was that similar? Was it like $1,100? Or like what was rent back then?
I think that's for me, like, there was 2 months of rent, but it felt like a lot of money, right?
Oh, I mean, 2 months, 3 months of rent, that's still a lot. But you just cut the tie. You were like, look, I've consumed less than 20% of his course, but I'm good to go. How did you do that?
I think at that point I understood two things. First thing I understood that, okay, so now from now onwards, I'm not gonna waste any, like free time of my life. I'm gonna do something better. That was the first understanding. And the second one was, if my friend could do it, I could also do it. And it's a matter of like, learning a different skill, but I will do
So,
it.
Kamal, what you're saying is, and when you said your friend, you're talking about the guy who was charging 2,500 bucks.
Yes.
So you're like, that's the business model I want. I want to be able to charge 2,500 bucks for other people to come and learn stuff from me. That's what I'm trying to do. And so when you went into his course, you went in with the idea, I'm going to become such a good Forex trader that I'm going to start my own course and teach other people. That was kind of your original intent.
That was not the original intent, but I just wanted to learn and start making like $100 a day. But I was also kind of super inspired by that idea too, right? I was like, okay, first step was to learn the skill only, but if needed, I didn't want to be in his competition. But when I decided that I'm going to do something else, I knew that I was going to use his framework, learn first, get better at it, and then,
And then go
teach,
teach other people.
teach other
Okay.
people.
All right. So you saw the monetization of mental capital. You're like, I'm gonna do that, but I got to figure out how he did it. I got into the candlestick stuff and was like, yeah, I don't get this at all. Shifted gears, went to YouTube and started, how do I make money online?
Exactly, yeah. And I was so motivated that the first video that came up was like, first video was like, Amazon FBA, like, somebody making a lot of money. And the second video, I was like, how to set up Amazon seller account. That was my second, video. And then I did not even complete the video. I was just, had one, YouTube on one tab and the seller central, registration page on the second. So that's, I did it step by step, like, open your seller central account, and then getting the UPC codes, like learning about the different models, wholesale, private label. So I was not only learning, like I was doing it right, right there and then. So, so that's kind of,
Super motivated. I love it. So you cut ties. And how did you decide that the candlestick? I go back to that. Like, how did you decide that's not what I want to do? After only consuming 2 hours worth of content and trying it out for yourself for 2 hours.
now I think of it like, I've been in the business for like, 7, 8 years now, like running my own agency. I'm not a analytical, person. I'm more of a
Mm,
visionary kind of, like I have an idea. I've like, thought of like think of different constraints in the business. Then I would go to the implementer, right? I'm, still to this date, I have the dashboards that I use, they're very visually, easy to understand. So I'm not a very, technical and analytical person. So that's why when I was seeing those like graphs going up and, going down, like red, green, they were like trying to find the
strengths.
path, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, like it made a lot more sense, for me to find a product in China, get your label on it, find the margins and just send, that made a lot more sense to me.
Interesting. So fast forward a couple years, you began to do the FBA thing. How long did you do the FBA thing for?
I did that for 2 years, right? So first year was like, a retail arbitrage, and stuff like that. And then second year was private label. And when I was doing the private label, I think the retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, those kind of things kind of made the basics very strong. And when I was doing the private label, I started doing it, during the community time. Like I started to organize meetups. And then at that time, I was learning from others, meeting, other sellers. And I was also, starting my own private label brand at the same time.
Beautiful. So you started to recognize it very similarly. Hey, this guy knew what he was doing. He's got courses. Wait a minute. There's probably other people that know what they're doing. Let's start a community. Let's start building, smart people together and connecting those dots.
Exactly.
Beautiful. So Kamal, big takeaway for me there. I mean, it's like don't do it yourself. Go learn from somebody else. Like you, in all of these instances, you sat on that couch, you were drinking that coffee, watching that TV, and you were like, I'm doing something different. I gotta do something different. And instead of just being like, I'll just go, stand on the corner and sell lemonade or whatever, you were like, I'm going to go find other people I know. So you found a friend who was doing the day trading. He was obviously doing well. I'm going to go learn from him. Oh, that doesn't work. Got to get 3 other guys in on this with me. Oh, that didn't work. Going to go try the FBA thing. And I'm sure you had your failures and challenges as you set that up. And throughout that process, you were like, I still got to learn from other people. So I'm going to go bring other sellers together.
Absolutely. And that's been unknowingly, like I still do it to this day. Like even all of our companies clients, we have a community, like exclusive community for all of our clients. Anybody that signs up, they get put into a community. Like, I'm organizing an agency owners mastermind. I'm part of like other masterminds, going to conferences and events like that. I think you can pretty much learn from from anyone. So I unknowingly, I think it's one of the strengths that I have, but it worked like really, really well for me. Before today's podcast, like I was at a mastermind session with like other agency owners. One was teaching like how to get more leads from YouTube. Like the other person was, telling us like, how he sets up workflows, at the conferences. And the third person, who was the speaker at the mastermind, they were sharing like all those SOPs, like when hiring during the recruitment process, which made, they were telling, and they were telling us about like different personality tests that they can do. Right. So the knowledge is power, and the more you can get it, and the easiest and fastest way to get the knowledge is from getting from similar people around you and who are like in the same shoes. So I think that is the fastest way to learn.
How do you find people who are in similar shoes to you? How do you find those people?
I think, like, again, just being around the community, right? Asking people questions, like doing an outreach. If, maybe YouTube these days is a good one. Like for some reason, whatever the constraint or bottleneck I have, I just search it on YouTube, and then YouTube and all those platforms start recommending you that stuff, or you start seeing those ads. I think it's everywhere, like wherever on social media, like in the communities, like in a digital world. I think it's never been easier than before than finding, like-minded people around.
Finding like-minded people, find people who face the same challenges as you.
Exactly.
So there's 2 instances in my life that I want to bring up where I saw the same thing and did the same thing. I have diagnosed, and I like to call it extreme ADHD. I am very, very ADD. And in college, I figured out that tests were not the best way for me to kind of figure out all of that stuff. In fact, so I was really bad at tests. I used to, at the end of class, on the day that the professor handed out he'd hand out like the review. Here's the review sheet for the test. Here's all the stuff you should be studying. At the end of that class, I would stand up and say, hey, anybody who wants to, I organized a study group. We're going to be in this room at this time, at this date. Before that, I had gone to the 3 smartest kids in the room. Like the ones, and you would watch the ones who would raise their hand, and they would only raise their hand when nobody else raised their hand. Like they weren't the first kid to raise their hand. They were the one when the teacher was like looking around like anybody, and they'd raise their hand. When that person raised their hand, that was who I went to. And I said, hey, I'm organizing a study group. It's going to be at this place in such and such a time. And I'm going to have other people there. I'm inviting so-and-so and so-and-so as well. And I would name those other 2 smart kids. They knew who each other were. And so as long as I got the smart kids there, they would come. And then when I got there, I would stand in the front of the room with the review sheet, and I would say, okay, the first thing we need to study is this. What do we need to know about that? And then they would just give me and I would like write down bullet points about everything that was there. And I was like, okay, cool, great. The next thing we need to know is, and I would just and people would come up to me afterwards like, Will, that was so helpful. I can't even believe. And I would walk into the test, and I kid you not, I would go down that test, and those people, like the things they said, the things that I wrote on the board, they were now written in my memory because I'd written them on the board. I was acing like 95, 96, 97 on my test without any of my own study because I was able to put the group together, like the think tank, to go through it all together and just pound through it. So like, same as you, right? Like I had a problem. I knew I wasn't the best at it. And so I found the best people in the room to create a mini mastermind. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. I was creating a mastermind for each test. And we were just masterminding our way through it. And that's how I got through college. That's how I figured out how to pass tests in college.
I think that is so relatable, and it's so yet so powerful. Yeah, it's it's as I mentioned, it's the fastest way, easy and the easiest way to learn and network other people, and it's a fun way of doing things, right? As Mr. Beast mentioned, on one of his videos, like back in the days, like they would do a mastermind, do spend all their day like talking about like very small things, like how can they make the thumbnails better, how can they make their title a little bit better, and just the knowledge of like years of knowledge of like other people, that the final outcome, like for example, artists, like their lessons, like for everybody's lessons just combined into one, and you can just like drink it all inside of you.
Yeah.
And
I love it. So I started an agency, and it was an automation agency. All we did was automate stuff for just random businesses. We were like one of the first automation agencies out there. It's called dataautomation.com. It's still a thing. They automate business processes now for e-commerce sellers. Mostly they take order information, tracking information, and inventory, and they sync it all across everybody's inventory management systems and all that jazz. That's what they turned into. But at the beginning, I was just an agency trying to figure stuff out. And I stumbled into a guy on LinkedIn, messaged me and said, I'm putting together this 10X mastermind, da 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 da. And I wanted feedback on my message. And I was like, well, that sounds awesome. I'm in. So I joined the mastermind in this like Slack group, and it was a weekly thing. And that thing taught me more about being an agency owner than anything else I did. And I just stumbled across it because I looked at my LinkedIn messages, and some guy was an agency owner, and he was reaching out, inviting other people to come in and connect those dots. So same exact thing, like no better place than to find somebody else who's doing what you want to do and learn from them. All right, Kamal, here's the question. Shifting gears. If I handed you a cell phone right now, so we're gonna imagine that I handed you that cell phone, and this is one of those like old time cell phones. It's actually not even an old time cell phone. It's one of these, right? Like I hand you one of these. The reason I'm handing you one of these that looks like this, that's, for those of you who are listening, it looks like one of those really old corded phones. You pick it up, Kamal, and on the other end of this phone, there is you when you're like 24. You just got off that couch. Holy crap, I got to do something better. What would you tell him to help him monetize his mental capital faster than the journey he took? What piece of advice would you give him that would be like, look, man, here's the deal. You got to make sure that you do X, Y, and Z. What would be the thing that you tell him?
okay, so there's a few things I would tell, to my old self, like to my younger self. So what I would, start sooner. Do not wait, for things to line up. Just start, the way you are, you will find answers for everything. That is the first thing that I would tell. The second thing
I like that. Hold on. You will find answers for everything. Like you will find, that's actually really solid. I think a lot of times we get kind of some analysis paralysis there, and that can be really, really difficult. I totally love that. You will find answers for everything.
Exactly right. So the moment you feel, exactly what we talked about, like there's never been a easier time than finding answers, like, like the age we're in right now. So yeah, I would say, start as soon as possible, come out. And the second thing is think bigger, from the get-go, like, from the beginning, like, when I never thought of like, that my agency would be making like multiple 7-figure a year. Like when I started, if I would have, believed in myself back in the days, maybe things could have been, a lot different and faster. So think big, start, as soon as possible. And lastly, that I'm learning right now is that build on leverage, like you mentioned, like automation. right? The software, and rely less on people and more on the hired, like, Alex Hermosi says, or Naval Ravikant says, like, and there's a people, and then there's like capital, then there's like a media, and then there's like software. You know, use leverage very wisely, and things will be a lot easier. So that's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. Okay. As we shift to the end part of our episode here, I have two questions for you. Two questions here. One, I'm going to ask you this. You're going to have 60 seconds to jump into an elevator. So you've just stepped into an elevator. The guy next to you is like, yeah, I'm a 7-figure seller. That's all you know about him. You got 60 seconds before the elevator is going to open and he's going to walk out, right? So I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Right after that, I want you to share any tips, tricks, hacks, or books that you've come across in the last year that have helped you monetize your mental capital. So as soon as you're ready, I am going to hit the button here and you've got your 60 seconds. Sound good?
Tip to the seller or tip to asking for a tip?
So tips, tricks, hacks, and books are for anybody, anything you've come across in the last year that has helped you. Oh, hold on. Good. I got the timer ready. So the timer is 1 minute to tell this seller in the elevator about your business. Okay. So tell them about your agency, why you guys are awesome, all that kind of stuff. Right after that, you're going to share any tips, tricks, hacks, or books you've come across in the last year that have helped you monetize your mental capital. Okay. So 2 separate questions. First, pitch me for exactly 1 minute. Ready?
Okay. So what we do is we help Amazon brands just like yourself, optimize their listings, product photography, videos, A+ content, 3D rendering, or if you're creating a listing from scratch, we can build out your entire listing page, and basically it will help you convert a lot better or increase your conversion rate.
Beautiful. Anything else you want to say to that Amazon seller?
Yes, we've been in the business, for about 7+ years. We have studios in different parts of the world. Indonesia, China, UK, Canada, USA. You can ship your products to your closest location, and yeah, so you will get high quality stuff in 2 to 3 weeks. So that's pretty much it about.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so now tips, tricks, hacks, or books, Kamal, that you've come across in the last year that have helped you monetize your mental capital.
So there's one tip I would like to share is there's, you guys obviously know that product principle 80-20 rule. And now that 20% also has a 80-20 in it. So it's the 4% of work, which is which is responsible for 96% of the outcome.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. I've never heard that before. So you got the 80-20 rule, but then there's also 20% of that goes even deeper.
So there's 4%, and you can break it down, even that remaining 4%, you can use 80-20 in that 4%, right? Which would mean there's 1% of work that you do is responsible for 99% of the outcome in your entire business. So what's that one thing? If you are an e-commerce seller doing 7-figure, in a year, I would say focus on your main images and split testing, and do a lot of split testing, because that is the 1% that can bring 99%, outcome in your business, because it's such a, it will only take so little time, and it has the maximum impact, to increase your traffic. So I have seen traffic, being doubled, tripled just by changing and split testing the main image. So
beautiful.
That's what I have learned recently.
That is a really solid tip, trick, or hack. Any other tips, tricks, hacks, or books you've come across in the last year that have helped you monetize mental capital?
These great CEOs are lazy. That's the book, I've been reading, watching Jim on YouTube, following him. I think every business has one constraint, right? So always focus on that one constraint, give all your energy trying to fix that one constraint, because that will, result in, increasing the overall outcome of the company, of your business. It is kind of similar to the 1%, or, 80-20% rule that I was saying. But the other framework to think about is, it's from great CEOs are lazy, find out what is the constraint in the business and just give your entire focus on fixing that constraint.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Both awesome words of advice. I totally agree with constraint theory. I think that's a powerful a powerful hack in the business. Kamal, it's been a pleasure to have you on our episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.